What is the threat posed by Americans who've been told by the president, if you do anything for me, I'll pardon you. If you do anything for me, I will pardon you.
It's a huge threat. He's creating, again, right out of the autocrat's playbook, he's creating effectively a shadow paramilitary organization loyal to him and motivated by him. You don't need to, as many a mob boss knows, you don't always have to give clear and concise orders to your shock troops. Will someone...
you can actually get to jail for that.
Right. Right. You don't do that. And you don't need to. Will someone rid me of this troublesome priest? And next thing you know, the swords are out. And, couple that with a tremendous effort to give them a lot of money, to make it easier for them to acquire arms, to praise them in words that allow them to believe they are not only a loyal paramilitary, but a loyal patriotic paramilitary. And one of the things we've seen is in every one of these autocratic regimes, the shock troops usually sort of believe they're doing the right thing. Everybody's the hero of their own movie. Nobody thinks that, I'm the bad guy. And that's what he's setting up here. The pardon is essentially a different version of what Hitler did by issuing an order that essentially immunized his loyal armed paramilitaries against criminal prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little harder in our system to grant immunity without, crossing one of those lines, although telling people I will pardon you is effectively the same thing.
Effectively the same thing. And we've gone from pardoning to pay in the slush fund.
Yeah, well, if you want your guys to do stuff, you want them not to be afraid of being held accountable for it, but guns cost money. So, as Warren Zevon said, lawyers, guns, and money. He's got the lawyers from Justice Department, he's got the guns, and he's got the money. He's got the trifecta.
Right. So what do you recommend for us to protect our the possibility of having elections that are free enough and fair enough and count enough to matter in the midterms?
First, we all, and you and I talked about this before we started, we have to balance the bleakness with anger and commitment and hope and even maybe a little joy in it. And that sounds a little crazy.
I love this fight, Steve. I say to young people who put their head on the table and start to weep, you are very lucky to live in a time where what you do matters. You do matters.
What I tell college students is this is your moment. This is it. We all have fantasized, what would I have done in 1941? Would I have gone to war? Would I have been landing on a beach in D-Day? Would I have enlisted after Pearl Harbor? There's your chance. Would I have marched with the civil rights movement? Would I have been a freedom rider? And I'm talking to, white upper middle class people here.
Yeah.
If you were black at Jim Crow Theft, you didn't really have a choice. But what would I have done? That's one of the great fantasies of modern American life. Well, it's here. It's not a fantasy. The hypothetical is real. What would you do? Second, we have to create those links across groups. We have to be willing to talk to people that we normally wouldn't. I was on a podcast the other day, and I must admit it filled me with happiness. Its tagline was unabashedly leftist. It's an Indiana podcast called Who's Left? HOOS. Get it?
Yes.
And, it was really clear that the host, who was great, by the way, disagreed with almost every single thing I've done in my professional life. But we both agreed that we have to preserve American democracy, and I was happy to be on his podcast.
Yep.
And he was happy to have me. We need to do that. We need to think about those people. We need to seek them out. We need to be ready to march next to them. Third thing, we need to get smart. Messing around with a government like ours, it's pretty complicated, and you can't do it without understanding it. I think we talked about this when I was last on. Most Americans don't know much about how American democracy works. We don't teach civics anymore in any of our high schools. I'm only a bill up on Capitol Hill as far as we get, so a singing cartoon. We need to study, we need to learn, we need to read. That's one of the things my organization tries to do through our social media, through our website, through our writing. And then we have to take that organization. We need to vote, vote, vote. And I'll add one thing which overlays this and is related to all of this. For the first time in my lifetime, we have to think hard about being willing to take risk. Getting involved in American politics is not risk-free anymore. It never was in my life. You want to vote, you want to speak, you want to go to a demonstration, you'll be up all day in the sun and you may get heat stroke. But, again, unless you were marching in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, nobody was going to hurt me. I grew up in a nice suburb of New York. I wasn't going to lose a job. There are risks here, and we got to be willing to take them, and we got to be willing to protect the people marching next to us, some of whom are taking more risk. I can take a certain amount of risk, but I have a pension, and I got health care, and I live in a nice neighborhood, and I'm an old white guy. But there are people who are going to be marching next to me who don't have all that, and I got to share their risk.